Horse boy.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome to the second meeting of the Royal Council. The chairman today is Duke Estavios Solsaver. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Baron Serpio Blackshroud and Gimlo Ruddle. All others who are not here would be considered absent. The second item of agenda on the item is business from the last meeting. Duke, is there anything you'd like to say before I give a rundown of the officers' report from the last meeting?
No, I don't think so. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So a couple of things that this committee asked us to do as officers. The committee asked for us to request a dialogue with the Raven, that he come before this committee to discuss the situation regarding Poldoon. And we have received a response, which I will read to you. The Principality of Poldoon has responded that it does not wish to open diplomatic communications with the neighbouring kingdom of Bereni at this time, but that such communications may be possible at a later date. The Principality of Poldoon's response is that neither Duke Raven nor his representative accepts any right of summons and will not attend the Royal Council at this time. I'm afraid that is all we've received. We have sent two further missives commanding another response and received nothing further.
Okay.
The second thing that the committee asked was that we seek legal advice. Now, I understand that we have one of the esteemed lawyers here with us who will say their piece in a moment, but just to give you what the royal courts have discovered, and then perhaps further information will be given then. So in regards to the legal advice this council asked for, we are told that this matter falls entirely into an area of meta law that is hard to determine. Technically, what the Raven has done might be within the law, except that the law does state that the king can overrule or set any law. Even if the courts were to act on behalf of the king and the state that Poldoon's status were invalid, Poldoon would clearly not accept that. Therefore, this matter falls outside of the court's remit and into the remit of this council and the king. So okay. I don't know, Duke, if you want to. We have Snodfer L. Thumper Esquire here, and I'll leave you to handle that.
That's largely my thinking as well. Basically, it becomes more of a political than legal issue, although if one wishes to evaluate the academic validity of the argument, it is in a meta area. But the best historical advice information as we have is that the Duke is relying on provisions that were basically put into place during the time of no kings, as one might expect. When a apparent heir was found, free of skepticism by dukes and others as to whether or not there would be a legitimate ruler. So in order to basically during the time of no kings, it basically become principalities by themselves because there was no central leadership. One could understand why there'd be a reluctance to accept the heir that appeared, but we don't seem to be in the same sort of situation here, although it is, as counsel has noted, an area in which there is a considerable room for making alternative arguments.
Well, that clears it up. One of the clauses that the Duke employed when he was breaking Poldoon away is he stated that there was a period of time which the king had to respond before Poldoon became independent. How does that play into the fact that the king can overwrite any laws based on what the royal courts have said? It may be legal, it may not, but in that the king did not respond for a lengthy period of time despite being given an ultimatum, does that have any impact on the legality of the situation?
I would think not. Basically, this was during a time of transition, as we all know, and it was not the smoothest type of transition. And I don't believe that any duke is entitled to. I don't believe the law gives the duke an entitlement to set an ultimatum for response to the crown. That would be my thinking.
Okay, so that doesn't really move us any further along than where we were last time. We still need to make a decision and a policy in how we're going to respond. So I'll throw that open to my esteemed colleagues to speak their thoughts.
I don't think it's acceptable to just let the Duke get away with it. There
should be some sanctions for it basically extracting the city that he governed on behalf of the king from Berenice. But once again, we don't want to start a civil war. But should we be moving troops to the area? Should we be introducing some, if they're going to be independent, should we be taking trade tolls from them? Difficult to say. But I think probably some form of marking the king's displeasure should be made. Whether that's personally to the Duke?
Yeah, I'm sure that the other, regions who are sort of not terribly happy with the king might be very keen to find out what you're going to do. I mean, might just push them over the edge. Southern glaciers, other cities. Oh, we're going to set up a roadblock between us and other parts of the kingdom and extract your taxes from them. That'll go down well.
We all know he's going to try to become part of Keir, traitor and bastard. Oh. Send the army in.
Sure. I'm sure that'll be very well received. A clash between the Duke's forces and the Royal Army. It depends on which unit gets involved, I suppose. It'll either be very short or very quick, or long and drawn out.
Well, what do the people of Poldoon think?
Sorry, go ahead, Baroness.
What do the people of Poldoon think? Are they loyal to the Duke?
Do we know? Do we have any way of finding out and communicating with them, the citizenship?
So we have some intelligence. So as best we can tell, a majority of the people of Poldoon are currently content with the situation. Now, I think we need to understand the difference between content and happy, because we don't really know how happy they are with it. But certainly there's not any imminent uprising about it. They don't seem to. There seems to be enough food in the city from what information we're getting, and people seem to be able to go about their lives. But there's a kickback from some of the traders and merchants who are obviously struggling now to trade outside of the city. And there's beginning to be a kickback about freedom of movement. But as it currently stands, although there are definitely some people speaking against the situation, the majority seem content.
Well, it seems as a practical matter, independence amounts to rebellion if we disagree with it. The question is, how should the crown respond? Are there ways to tighten the screws or to telegraph that action may be forthcoming? I don't think we've heard from the military that it makes sense to invade tomorrow, but we shouldn't let this pass.
I wonder if the royal clerks can enlighten us at all as to what options we have available in terms of sanctions. What trade is there? What commerce movement is there with Poldoon right now? What benefits are they actually getting from the kingdom if we haven't blocked anything that was going in and out before? Where do we stand in terms of sanction options?
So at the moment we have blocked nothing, but movement in and out of the city has fallen dramatically down to about 20%, maybe even lower, of its previous levels. We think that is because people are unsure about being able to get back into the city, but we don't know for sure. Most of our intelligence does come from people who've emerged, are willing to speak to us under cover of anonymity and then return. But we do know that people do go back, so they're not fleeing and leaving. So that is why we believe most people are content. In regards to the options, well, we could put a ring around Poldoon and prevent people coming and going. That would require a militia there to enforce that. And our militia let us know that they are ready, stand ready to serve as needed. But as you all know, they are stretched.
They are. I was thinking more along the lines of economic sanctions, I guess. We have open borders right now between Berenice and the other kingdoms. There's no checkpoints per se. There's no army lines that people traveling. It's a long journey across the mountains in some cases, but there's nothing to stop people from moving freely forwards and backwards. So to take a position where we would impose those kind of travel restrictions around Poldoon seems a little bit unusual, unless going to treat them in a completely different way, i.e. not recognise them as a separate entity, in which case, you know, we should take potentially a very hard line. I think either it boils down really, I think, in my view anyway, and I welcome other people's thoughts, whether we accept this is a legal action and whether it's something Barony is going to accept or not. I think we can't mess around one way or another anymore. We need to decide and declare whether we accept what the Duke's done or we don't. If we don't, we need to take definite action to prevent it and take the city back. I'll walk in the front door if I need to, or we accept it and open diplomatic talks in a more pleasant way. At the moment, we're accomplishing nothing, so we've got to take a position.
We don't want to be the bad guys. Can we make the Duke, make the Raven feel like the bad guy to the people? So far, any problems happening in the city are entirely his fault, not the King's. If we could exacerbate that somehow, make it look like he's the villain of the piece, people might turn against him and say, "Why are you doing this, the Raven? Because you're rebuilding this kingdom and King's being generous to you and kind to you, and you've achieved nothing for us or the city. You just harmed the city itself for no benefit."
Are you being more bothered about what the people of Poldoon think rather than the rest of the country?
Chairman,
well, at the moment,
if I could just make you aware that I believe Meantime has just arrived into the meeting.
Greetings all.
Hello.
A little late, but here at end.
Good to see you again, Meantime. Just in time.
Well, there is a lot. I might add, there is a logic. The part of the purposes the Crown collects taxes is to secure travel along the highways. I believe the highways and roads are the King's roads. If Poldoon decides it doesn't care to pay for that support, then there's, I believe, Baroness Brightblade actually mentioned this, would be basically a toll or whatever you would have it for their right to use the royal roads without having paid taxes to support them.
Okay, so I would assume we're not currently receiving any taxes or income from Poldoon?
No, they said nothing so far.
That's correct, Chairman. Gabon is correct. No monies have been received from Poldoon. However, we have had several missives from bureaucrats within the new Poldoon bureaucracy, and they have said that they would be willing to pay a fee towards what they call joint interests or mutual interests to be negotiated. They haven't said how they wish to set about negotiating that, and they've also offered the use of the various militia that the Raven and Poldoon control for threats that threaten Barony and its neighbours.
Thank you. Okay, well, on the face of it, that seems quite reasonable. However, we still haven't answered the question, are we happy to accept this accession from the kingdom or not?
The concern would seem to be that we've got the Red Knights running riot in various places around the kingdom, and it's not entirely clear whether the Duke of Poldoon is siding with or against the Red Knights. It does seem more like he's against them. In which case, are we going to have problems with the Red Knights if we put our focus on Poldoon? And the same with Keir. We just fighting internally.
I think the Baroness has probably forgotten some of the missions that the Poldoon border scouts have been chasing up. Something to do with Keir and drugs trade and chasing down those particular angles has threatened the kingdom as a whole. So I don't think the Baroness the kingdom has anything particularly to worry about in that angle.
I don't see what the discussion is here. How can the kingdom possibly accept a secession of a duke and his city?
I'm not was wondering about. I was just mentioning the
Well, that was the question that was raised: is do
Paul
we
Dune.
accept it?
Oh.
No.
It was the Southern Gases who send the Crusader orders in. Why don't they do the same for this petty git in Poldoon?
Do we have enough of the troops in order to do something about it?
Chairman, if I may, of course, we do have troops that we could use, and the best estimates are that we have plenty enough, but they are all committed currently elsewhere, and so it would mean weakening our defences elsewhere if we were to do that.
Do you have any alternatives in terms of carrying out the duties those troops are currently engaged in? Where are they committed at the moment? Could we use any of the Crown Loyal guilds to assist and take some of the pressure away from the Royal Army and militia?
Some of this is to be covered in the third agenda item, security of the kingdom. I don't want to repeat myself, Chairman, but to do the best I can to answer your question, they're all over the place. They're committed all over the place, both on standard mundane matters you would normally expect them to be, not all of which I could provide you with a list of, but I wouldn't want to list them all here because it's a lot of places. And then also all of the various points of contact with the Red Knights, even though some of those are over now, we don't know they're completely finished, and so our forces being maintained. Some of the forces that have recently been requested elsewhere, they've been put into place. But we can always move things around, and the militia are keen to let us know that they are ready to serve as this council and the king command.
Well, it seems to me the best option, which probably doesn't exist, is to avoid a hardening of the Raven's position while we clear up other security matters, and then be planning for a move against the rebels, which is what I think the Raven is. I don't know the politics of how to do that or what can be done to destabilize the Raven's efforts, or at the very least prevent him becoming stronger in his position.
Is there
How do we play for time?
Is there not a risk he will realise that is what is happening?
Sure.
And that will harden the position.
Well, one way to play for time is always to send in the diplomats and negotiators. It was indicated that bureaucrats in Poldoon have reached out to us to discuss taxes, levies, and joint operations. Why don't we extend, and the Raven also, for that matter, has said he won't appear before us as under summons, but he would be inclined to talk to us at a future date. Perhaps if we approach Poldoon with our own negotiators to request detail on exactly what their position is, what they're expecting from us and to do with us, with a mandate to drag out those discussions for a period of time. We could get potentially some information back that could prove useful. We could delay, as the Count suggests, the need to make a more aggressive decision whilst our forces are committed elsewhere. And potentially also it could lead to a more favourable response from the Duke to come and speak with us directly, which may enable us to gauge his intentions face to face a little bit better than we can do at a distance, and may indeed help us decide when and what to do. Unless anyone's got any better ideas, because at the moment we're not progressing any further with this.
As a scold, I agree with that. I think the way to approach it is probably through the hearts and minds of the people rather than through Raven himself. Make them feel like he's just being petty and silly, trying to relieve the kingdom. If we show ourselves magnanimous and kind to the people and saying, well, if the Raven wants to leave, he can talk about it, but he's just being silly and wasting everyone's time and resources. So if we negotiate apparently in good faith, whilst meantime conducting some sort of charm offensive against the people and saying, why would you want to leave the kingdom? The kingdom's always been good to you. We've never done any damage to you. Why would the Raven want to leave the kingdom? Because he's given no real reason to his people or to us why he wants to leave, other than some really obscure point of law, which is, no offence, Mr. Powerpumper, but largely nonsense. He's not given any real reason to leave the kingdom. So let's make the people feel like, what's he doing? Make them lose faith in him. And if we negotiate and drag the negotiations as long as possible without presenting a harsh response to it, people will say, well, why? We'll say to the Raven themselves, we don't want to leave the kingdom. What are you doing? We'll put pressure on them that way.
Chairman, if I may, one resource that you have that not everybody here will be aware that we have is that there is an intelligence arm of the militia. Now, it's not a large arm; it's a small group, but they do specialise in the sort of changing of messaging that seems to be being described here, and they would be able to operate at this council's command.
Yeah, I think that sounds, unless there's any dissenting voices, Baroness Branning, I think that sounds like a very good approach. We'll send in the negotiators, appear magnanimous and willing to talk at least, but employ our intelligence services to gain the hearts and minds of the people and perhaps incite an internal rebellion whilst appearing less aggressive ourselves.
Humouring him.
Would it not be more straightforward to negotiate in good faith while still spreading the message that the kingdom is good, rather than try to do something underhand?
Yes, I'm sure you're aware that nefarious means will probably backfire, or might have a very good way of backfiring, because if the Raven's half as good as we give him credit for, this and the details will feed back to him, and he may be able to present this in bright, on nice billboards across the country. And see what your great king does. He sends in a team of crack investigators, sowing discord among the people, aiming to foment revenge and rebellion. That'll go down well.
I think rebellion's already been fomented is the problem.
Yes, but you may backlash, and more cities may rebel.
David Vigilare not to sod off to Middenghast and then go to attack Poldoon. We've got more pressing matters in Poldoon, and some mythical place that allows the undead to exist that may not even be.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of that, but that's completely separate. But it's better to find someone to say, tell people that you are willing to undertake business as usual. Speak to the bureaucrats in Poldoon, say that you're willing to, maintain with business trade, doing the roads, decide to people that everything's fine. It's just a disagreement, rather than slightly being underhand. We don't want anything to backfire. Eventually, it all might just peter out. That's what you want to happen. You want things just to peter out, and it for not to be a problem anymore.
So, Chairman, there seems to be some difference of opinion on this matter, and at the moment, I'm unsure what the guidance of this committee is. Perhaps you could sum it up for us.
I think you're right in that there is a split opinion. I think, Gunnar, you are definitely all in favour of sending in the army and just slapping this rebellious duke down. I think there's a few different approaches being proposed, but I think we need to take a slower approach. I don't disagree with you, Gunnar, and I think the fact that the city has rebelled, unless there is some reason behind it that we're not aware of, that the Duke can explain to us when he comes before us, some other matter that we're not aware of. I mean, we know there's some strange stuff going on in Poldoon right now underneath the city. So maybe there's something to do with that, but I'd really like to speak with the Duke face to face. I don't want to therefore start an attack or blockading the city immediately. I think we need to send in, first of all, our negotiators to discuss the situation, appear magnanimous, and buy a little bit of time so that when we don't discover any reasoning behind this, then we can take appropriate action as and when our forces are freed up and more available to do so. I think we need time to prepare. I'm certainly not discounting your views right now. I tend to lean that way myself, but I don't think being immediately aggressive is the solution. So that's what we should do, and that is my decision unless anyone wishes to dispute it right now.
I'm happy.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got that noted down.
Okay. Next agenda item, please.
Yeah, so the next agenda item is security of the kingdom. A brief report is that, again, the Red Knights do appear to have fallen back further even since our last meeting. There have been no new approaches or attacks from them. And so we are maintaining our forces as they were, but things do seem to have calmed down a little bit. Now, our intelligence suggests they have certainly not gone away. We're still waiting on more information from the various adventurers who are investigating the Red Knights base to see what there is to be seen there, but we do have some feeding through to us. And as has been previously mentioned, there does seem to be a link to both Kia and to the drugs trade, but quite what that link is not yet clear. There is one other matter though, and I'm afraid it does once again relate to Poldoon, but slightly differently. We have had a contact, a communication from a lady we're not aware of called Catalina Rose. Now, she is apparently a mage who lives in Poldoon. We've not encountered her before. She's not a famous mage, but she says that her lifelong interest is in the Poldoon Undercity, the dungeons under Poldoon. And she has long tracked 7 demons that are well known to live in that area. That they're called, they're named the 7 deadly sins. And it appears that one of each of these demons represents a different type of sin. Adventurers have encountered them in the past, and we have always believed that all 7 demons lived under the city. Now, sometimes they have been killed and then they have returned. So there appears to be some kind of immortality involved. We don't know the nature of these forces. Now, what Catalina has written to tell us is that ever since she has been involved in magic, all 7 deadly sins have been under the city. But her most recent magical scan, and we're not aware how she's doing these scans, but she says that from her most recent magical scan, only 3 of the deadly sins are still under the city, those being lust, envy, and gluttony. But pride, greed, wrath, and sloth are all 4 apparently not being detected under the city. She suggests, therefore, they are elsewhere and wanted to make us aware of it.
So that's interesting to hear, because I personally have encountered the demon known as Lust in the on the mission that I'm involved in called the Girls' Night Out, where we some of the adventurers slew as part of that. So that demon as well would appear to have left the vicinity of Poldoon and travelled somewhere else.
If he was defeated, might that have just sent it back where it came from?
Well, yes, except these things return, don't they? The scan, I imagine it's probably just nothing more than a seer ability to send an eye, rather than to stand to trace and track an entity. Once you know what it's called, you can send it after them ad infinitum.
That may be, sir. I'm afraid the clerks to the courts, we do not know a great deal about magic and defer to your better knowledge.
Yeah, that's
Pride's not below the city. Could he be in the city? The Raven's acting very proud.
I couldn't speculate, sir.
If
Maybe we should include an exorcist amongst our people negotiating with him just to see if they can see anything.
How would you identify it?
I don't know. That's a priest thing, isn't it? You could send a priest in as negotiators.
There is a group of adventurers from the Great Library who are at the moment attempting to descend to the levels of Poldoon that hold the 7 deadly sins. Well, obviously, it will take a while to do that and confirm whether or not the sins are still in residence or whether they're not there at the moment.
I think I'd be interested in finding out more information from this this mage, Catalina. How is she tracking them? I think we need to talk to her about that. We need perhaps the royal mages involved. If it is Chowdan, as you say, using a scrying spell, a spectral eyes spell, which I know is something most enchanters or a lot of enchanters can do if they've taken the right path, then she surely must have cast that spell on all of them previously. Now, if, as you say, it's a case of just needing to be able to identify them to be able to cast it again, why can she no longer locate them? Surely it's not just limited to the range of the city of Poldoon. So I'd be curious to understand a bit more about how she's scanning for them, and what's changed about that, and then how or whether we can use her, work with her to train other mages, be they royal court mages or other adventurers, to try and also carry out the same searching activity. If we've got adventurers, I mean, I members of the Royal Guild, I could certainly employ in this. I'm sure there are a lot of adventurers, enchanters and enchantresses around the kingdom, all over the place, that if they could somehow be taught this ability, if it's something that can be taught, we could cover the majority of the kingdom much more easily than one person in one city can do. And that might give us a better idea where they are.
Yes, so we did ask if she could tell us what magic she was using. And she said, and we don't understand what this means, but perhaps you will. She said that it was a path that she'd trod all her life.
Strange.
Yeah, doesn't mean anything to me, but I left all that stuff to my wife.
Did Chowdan not mention taking a path?
So it is one of the enchanter paths to learn spectral eyes, but whether that is the ability that she's using or not, she could. There are many different paths, and it could be that she's taken a different one.
Yeah, it doesn't explain to me why she can no longer locate them if that's the case.
Well, if one was possessing a person, maybe they wouldn't be sharp as easily.
I understand that when you slay them, they go back to, I don't know, they get regenerated somewhere. Maybe when they're dead, you can't track them. I've yet to find anyone who can test that theory, though.
Is there any limitation on where these eyes can go?
No, I'm not a mage, not yet. Although I have inclinations that way.
I was wondering if anyone knew.
So I believe they normally can go anywhere within Berenice, but obviously it is possible to shield locations from magical scrying and magical transport. So it's possible that they are shielding themselves in some way, or that they are moved to a location which is shielded.
Right, so but Berenice. So it may just be you want something like what you're saying, that where they live under, or they are under Poldoon, is actually not actually under Poldoon.
Well,
it has been in the past.
Exported to Kier.
Yes, well, there's rumoured of links from, say, the frontier to the land of the Fae that would do it.
Well, she only said they weren't under Poldoon anymore, and we know one is in what we know where Lust was, so they are around Berenice somewhere, I suspect. Just she didn't know how to find them outside Poldoon, or she hasn't tried, or something.
Maybe Berenice no longer that interesting to them. They've moved abroad.
Well, Lust hasn't.
I don't think we've got enough information to go on at all at the moment. I think if I think it'd be worth having Catalina speak with an enchanter who is a seer, just to understand whether that's the ability she's using. I know a couple I can have come to discuss this with her. And if we can get a little bit of clarity there, that will at least know what she's been doing. And then we can look to move forwards, potentially having other enchanters scry in the same way. So I think we should arrange that first of all. Other than that, I don't think we've got anything to go on really. So the Great Library mission sounds like it may find some information, but not particularly quickly. That can carry on. And other than that, I think we just need to keep our eyes and ears open at the moment, and maybe make the whatever sort of militia forces we have around the kingdom aware that there may be these elements operating, and if they see anything, I'm sure they all have traits. Lust speaks for itself, and if there are any signs that there are increases in the sort of behaviours that they would elicit, then bring that to our attention and we can investigate further. But right now, until something else happens, I don't think we've got a lot to go on.
If I can just state again, she said that the sins are no longer under Poldoon, which does not exclude in Poldoon, and the Raven's acting very prideful. And he's given no logical reason to anyone why he's leaving the kingdom, other than possibly his own pride. There's no reason given as to why he should leave the kingdom. I'm wondering if he's been influenced by the sin of pride, and it's actually manipulating him somehow. Maybe his pride not under Poldoon, but in the palace in Poldoon.
I think this is possible. I think it might be worth. I don't know how strong her powers are at detecting these. Now we know. I think there may be something in what you say. This links back into our approach towards Poldoon. I think we're looking to bring the Raven before us in a time that he will agree to, rather than a demand. I can understand him digging his heels in at the thought of us demanding his presence. So let our diplomatic negotiation continue. Relationship with the Raven at the moment until such time as he comes before us. When he's talking with us here on the council, let's also summon the mage Catalina Rose to join us in a face-to-face environment. When she can see him, she can hear him, she'll be able to tell potentially whether he is inhabited by this demon or not.
If he is, he wouldn't come before us because his pride wouldn't let him. He wouldn't grovel before the council, as he would see it, if he was full of sinful pride.
He probably wouldn't if you commanded him or required him to obey, but if you requested his presence to enlighten us what it's about, it might appeal to it. Is it actually out of his nature what he's doing?
I think it is.
It is. So when he appears before us, I'm not particularly familiar with the Raven. I met him once at a dinner. He seemed fairly reasonable at the time. I don't know him that well, but when he comes before us, I think that will give us a much better chance to judge his behaviour, his personality, whether it seems consistent with what we know about him. And I would like to have the mage here as well to see whether she can detect anything unusual or wrong about him.
Just a little thing, Duke Ostavios. Isn't a request the same as an order?
It's all how you word it, I think.
I probably prefer the word invite myself.
Yes. Play to his pride a bit more.
Maybe invite him to a function somewhere in between Poldoon and Crown.
We actually want him to be invited to the council, so rather than a function.
Maybe we ought to relocate ourselves somewhere closer to Poldoon.
The next meeting could be held nearer.
He's not going to turn up in person, is he? Didn't he? Something a few years ago, an image of him turned up, didn't it?
Yeah, Poldoon has its own council as well, or courts, or whatever they want to call themselves. Maybe they'll send a representative.
Well, I think the important thing is we are able to communicate with him in person. I mean, the location doesn't necessarily matter. We're all carrying out this magically at the moment. So as long as we can see him, we can talk to him, and we can judge his behavior and personality, I think that's the next step.
Back to the 7 sins. If we're not sure what mechanism this mage is using, let me turn it to a different question, which is how would our mages or priests search for the location of these demons? Is there information that she can provide that would allow more standard priests or mages to try to track them? That might be, that's a different path.
I understood that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to send. I'm going to send a Royal Guild mage to meet her and discuss with her. I have a member of my guild who is a seer, so discuss with her what she's doing and trying to understand it.
Do we not have two royal mages? Two high mages?
What is the status of the royal high mages at the moment, Clarks?
A little confused, sir. We are waiting on the king, and hopefully with the advice of this council, to clarify all of the official positions. At this point, there does appear to be two, but I'm sure that will be clarified. Perhaps that the king will dictate that there should be two, or perhaps one of those will be given a different role. That remains to be seen.
At the moment, we do have two incumbents in those positions.
Sounds like a good excuse for them to show their abilities and prove their usefulness to the kingdom. Whichever one returns most information can be confirmed as Royal Mage.
Okay, then that is the way we'll go. We've got a couple of routes there. We will ask those Royal Mages to evaluate what Catalina is doing and see if they can understand it, with a view to using those abilities themselves or teaching them to other enchanters. We will carry on with our diplomatic approach to Poldoon, with a view to inviting the Raven to join us at the next council meeting, or perhaps the one after, depending how quickly these things move, so that we can then judge face to face how he is acting, whether he seems himself or there may be something else involved.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make one observation, I just happen to be thinking, it's a very curious coincidence that this mage comes forward and reports this occurrence to us about the same time the bleeding was discovered in the pits of Poldoon. I wonder if there's a correlation.
There could indeed be, and I think that's another good reason for the Royal Mages to speak with her and find out anything they can.
I am looking into the bleeding situation.
Good. I know there's quite a few adventurers have travelled to Poldoon to look into this, so keep us informed meantime. That would be great to know anything you find out. Okay, are there any other matters of security we need to discuss?
No, sir, that's it. We're ready with agenda item 4 when you are.
Then let's move on to that. This is one I'm actually particularly interested in right now. So let's talk about legal matters pertaining to the monster dungeons scattered around the kingdom.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This should be a fairly brief one, we think. It's just that the courts would like clarification on just a couple of matters. So previously, although technically the Crown owns every piece of land in the world, there was a different legal status given to monster dungeons previously, because, and I don't want to speculate why, but technically if there was a dungeon that was just full of an organized monster force, it would be up to the Crown to make sure that was cleared out. But the Crown chose not to do it at the time. And so those particular dungeons were ceded as not part of barony. The legal distinction is difficult to precisely explain. They could become part of barony, but weren't presently part of barony. And so that meant that the royal forces weren't obliged to go and clean them out. Now that they are broadly empty and adventuring guilds are heading their way to the dungeons, we wanted your advice on whether those dungeons should remain with that status or should be once again considered standard barony land, because otherwise, technically, those adventuring guilds would own that land and they would be outside of the official area of barony. It's another a legal technicality, but one we thought was important to establish.
Okay, thank you for that summary. I'd be interested in a lawyer's opinion.
But basically, in view of the Poldoon situation, I think it would be a better precedent for the Crown to assert its dominion over and control over those dungeons, as opposed to letting sort of a continuation of things owned by citizens of Burney, occupied by citizens of Burney, to sort of somehow remain outside the scope of royal purview.
Yeah, thank you very much. I fully agree with that position and support it. As some of you may know, the Royal Guild of Adventurers is on the verge of taking the dungeon of Abysmalia in the next day or so. We will have sufficient presence in that dungeon as dictated by the royal courts to claim it as a base of operations for ourselves. And I know other guilds are getting close to doing the same. And I thoroughly support the fact that although the guilds who meet those criteria will have dominion to an extent over that dungeon and what happens in it, we'll be able to set up guild houses, traders will come in, all that kind of thing. It does, as any dungeon, need to be overall under the purview of the crown. I don't think they can be unaffiliated states effectively. The ability for guilds to build private armies in their own little domain would be a terrible thing, I think. And certainly as the guild leader,
I think it's very interesting. So, royal courts, is there actually a possibility of these being ceded from the kingdom?
I don't think. Yeah. I mean, could that happen from a legal standpoint? Is there any sort of precedent for that? I guess is one question. But
because they already have, because they currently are, so they could just extend that status.
Well, Chairman, I think originally it was a convenience, but it's a convenience that's become a difficulty.
I couldn't say they haven't seceded, have they? Isn't it more the fact that someone has written something and it doesn't quite cover the state of what they are, rather than they've actually left? So if it's just a matter of changing in barony to in, under, or above barony, is that all that needs doing?
It's closing a loophole, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
The land's currently terra nullis. This is to be brought back into real land again.
Yeah.
Testing is to see if it breaks.
Surely we should advise the king to state that these these dungeons will be held by the guilds who successfully take them under the crown in the same way.
Under the crown. Okay.
And a thank you to the guilds for restoring this land to its rightful position.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That would give them broadly the same status as an estate, which I think is what you're saying.
Yes. Yes.
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, and the last agenda item is everyone's favourite subject, taxation.
At last.
Well, as adventurers, as per the adventurer charter, we don't have to pay tax. So what do we all know about it?
So thank you, committee, for your previous advice. And we took your previous advice to the king, who did implement it. And your previous advice was that we should advise barons to increase the taxation to their residents, and that we should, and there were one or two other smaller ways that we should increase taxes, but that you were very much against generic sales tax or a tax citizens tax. Well, we've done that, and we have had some kickback. So first of all, the Traders Guild have sent a very strong missive opposing any increased tax on traders, which obviously is passed through the estates. Traders who are doing business in the estates are finding that they're being taxed. Now, in most baronies, the taxation increase was about 8%. The highest one we know of was 14%, and the lowest was 3%. But the Traders Guild are angry about this and feel that they are being unfairly treated in regards to other people who go about business but are not technically traders. They also say that people who live in villages that are not in the city, not in the estates, are being now taxed differently to cities that are in the estates, because the estates are only able to increase their levy on villages within their estates. So it has created a kind of two-tier taxation. And then the second problem we've had is that there's something called the Village Voices Alliance, which is a number of middle and southern villages who feel that it's very unfair for them to be given increased taxation, some of which goes to pay for protection of the southern glaciers, who they say pay nothing in tax, because there are no estates there.
Thoughts?
I thought it was the barons that additionally tax?
Yes, we instructed the barons to do that meantime, and they did so through increased taxation on the business and populations within their estates.
So is it the case that villages on estates have to pay tax and villages off the estates pay no tax? I thought the Crusaders of Merle collected taxes from all of the population centres.
Yeah, that's correct. But the Crusaders of Merle's taxation collection is quite small. The bigger taxation is the taxation that goes to the barons from the villages within the estates. So there has always been a two-tier taxation level, but it's been significantly increased by our increases on the barons.
Lord Crusader?
Yeah, what do you need?
What are your views on
Wake up, you git.
and how to resolve it?
He's been too busy counting his coins again.
I don't like everything.
He's not
The
here.
coins
He's
are
down
mine.
the damsel's house, isn't he?
This is a
I
go.
think
What
I think
about
the
the tax on magical items? Only those adventurers who have significant amount of tax would then incur it.
Personally, I think that's a terrible idea. I'm not going to.
Only because I think your outstanding back tax bill, Duke Estevius, probably runs into the tens of thousands.
How would you make them admit it anyway?
Oh, you just have to see him. He glows from a distance.
But adventurers wander the land willy-nilly constantly. You'd never be able to find them or to tax them.
No, they pay extra in an additional duty. You could link it to the value of the magical item and call it, say,
Under the
value-added tax.
Adventurers Charter, we're a standing militia, so we don't have to pay tax.
That's correct.
Well, you're not paying tax.
20,000 years.
You're just paying an additional amount to the trader for the magic item.
So we put tax on healing potions or something.
I was thinking more material things, healing potions.
Basically, the tax would be on the magical traders at the courtyards for the sale of brand new magical items, as opposed to.
They increase the price of various items from traders in the courtyard. The money from that will then be sort of classed as tax and will then go to the kingdom. So that way, adventurers are not sort of paying tax as such. It's the ones with sort of stupid amount of money or gold or whatever you want to call it, who buys expensive magical items. It will cost a bit more, but your everyday adventurer, you might have sort of only a handful of coins to buy a healing potion. Shouldn't affect him too much. It might be sort of 1 or 2 gold more in price than it is at the moment. So it shouldn't be too bad.
Chairman, just if I could come in there, that would be very easy to implement. Sir Gaborne's suggestion would be a simple one to do. If certain items, perhaps healing potions, for instance, that are commonly purchased, or rations, then will increase the small amount. That would be a very easy tax to implement and collect.
I think.
Are magic traders subject to the kingdom of barony? Are they even human?
Yes. They're not human, but they are subject to taxation through barony.
Right.
All common items are a better approach than magical weapons and armor and so on, simply because the number of those purchased is going to be tiny in comparison to healing potions or rations or whatever we want to call it. You know, it's like it's better to sell 1,000 tickets for 10 gold than 1 ticket for 100 gold. You know, it just doesn't make sense. So
yes, after all, if you had a magic item tax, you'd end up it being a glow tax, wouldn't you? Magical glow. No.
There we go.
Don't give up your day job.
The advantage of taxing the more expensive things is the burden would only fall on those who could afford to do it.
I was thinking the same. I don't think you can put a levy on rations because you're starting out. Wannabe adventurers won't be able to afford them.
That's true, Kevin, but
pick up.
If I could just come in there, the problem with that, of course, is that in order to raise a decent amount of taxation, as is necessary, we have to tax things that people commonly buy. Some of the higher magic items that aren't commonly enough purchased to give us enough coming into the coffers.
Well, in that case, I'd recommend healing ointments, healing potions, teleport home scrolls, re-teleport scrolls, all relatively common use items.
Yes,
As I
please.
recall, this tax is an temporary emergency measure, is it not? Just for the duration of this emergency. And once things calm down, the tax will go away again. So we can sell it to people
Well,
as something like that, as a temporary contribution to the kingdom to help out.
Shouldn't need to be. If you
Here's
need
one.
trade taxes,
What about this one? You don't own your magic item, you loan it from the bank. So every month you've got to pay 10 gold.
I think this might be a dig at a certain duke.
Definitely sounds that way, doesn't it? I
Do
think
you
what you're better off doing at the moment is put sort of a small sort of price on sort of things like rations, teleport home, cleaning ointments, all the sort of the cheap stuff you buy, earners will buy and use quite a bit. Say 1 or 2 gold pieces, depending on what it is.
When was the last time you bought a healing ointment, Sigurd? Because what you're suggesting, by my understanding, is essentially a 20% increase on the price of a healing ointment, minimum.
When was the last time I used a healing ointment? Oh, how many years have I got to go back?
Right. I think that answers the point fairly well.
The alchemist's going to be a make a killion on this. Buy their cheap potions and around.
A potion of healing, you could increase the price of. That would make sense.
Yeah.
But you're
Healing potions, yes.
You're starting out.
Would you like the clerks to produce a list for the next meeting of a proposed,
Sure,
let's say 10 items that could be increased for your consideration?
I welcome your eagerness to volunteer. I was actually going to ask Sir Gaborn to do that as the expert in taxation and money.
Well, we'd be happy to work with Sir Gaborn, of course, but we are in the process of recreating a paper list of the common prices of items, and so this is a good time for us to do that work.
Okay, done.
Out of interest, is it likely to also affect a trader found in a different country?
They may increase their prices to compete.
If it's not in Barony, it's not my problem.
It doesn't matter if it's in Barony, I agree. Okay, put that list together. We'll discuss it at the next meeting.
So do we still have an outstanding problem that there are villages in the kingdom which are being taxed at a different level? So if you're on an estate, you're getting lots more tax than ones that are off there. And will that just provoke more dissent?
At the moment, sir, our suggestion, our response to the people who have complained has been that there are benefits to living in a population centre and also costs. And so people who live in the countryside, if you like, have less protection and less amenities, and so do pay a lower level of tax. They're not happy with that response, but that is the one we've been giving.
I'd be happy to expand my estate to include more villages.
You'd have to pay more tax if you did that, though.
Okay, listen, we've got...
Is there any possibility to raise tax if we charge barons for slightly expanding their estates, and then they have to make a hefty contribution to the crown to do so?
You could absolutely do that, sir. That's within the remit of this committee, obviously.
That's actually a very interesting suggestion. I think in terms of actions that we've got so far, though, the clerks and the Lord Crusader will work together to come up with a list of more common items that we could potentially increase taxation on. I think we should definitely look into the prospects of raising significant amounts of funds through estate land grants potentially. But as far as the villages are concerned, I think if there's no actual real dissent being raised at the moment, people are unhappy, I get that, but let's let that stand for now until we look at what effect the other proposals will have, and then we can look at adjusting that back down if necessary from the village point of view.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, so could you also then work with the royal clerks to put together a proposal around the increasing of land allocated to estates, as Baroness Miranda suggested?
Yeah, it can be easy enough. Sort of size of the estate, they want more land. They pay so much, they get sort of X amount of sort of land added to their estate, but it will take a bit of time to sort out the costs and sort of various sort of handiwork and that, so to speak.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think just my initial thoughts on that is there should be limitations on how much an estate can be allowed to expand. Also, there should be an upfront contribution from the Baron to reclaim that land, to account for the necessary work involved, be it paperwork or indeed terraforming, landscaping, whatever you want to call it. But also potentially consider, since we are talking about taxation here, an ongoing cost for effectively leasing that land from the Crown.
An ongoing taxation?
Effectively an ongoing taxation on any additional areas over and above the standard size of estate.
Thank you, Chairman. That's very helpful, and we will certainly welcome the expertise of the Lord Crusader in this important work.
Okay, I think we're coming to a close now, but is there any other business that needs to be raised and discussed?
Just one, sir. I don't know if anyone else has any, but we have one more. The clerks have received a missive from Midgast. The missive says, well, if I can paraphrase, because it's quite a long missive, the missives from this place tend to be very flowery in language. But the gist of it is that they're concerned that they have heard Berenice might be planning an invasion. They want to once again extend their hand. They want to once again extend their hand of friendship. Now, this might disturb some people, and I apologise for that, but I have to tell you the truth. So they sent a gift to show their good intentions, and the gift was 6 children. Obviously, that is not appropriate within our culture, and we've made sure that the children are being looked after and are currently being taken care of, pending a decision as to what precisely, whether to send them back or to rehome them here. They then go on to warn most strongly against any threat from Berenice and say they welcome our friendship, though.
Yes, we should be grateful, and we should provide them with plenty of business opportunities, including the provision of use stakes.
Well, first is it's a trade caravan, not an invasion. Emphasize that to them. Secondly, who are these children? Are they hostages? Are they children of peasants as gifts to be eaten? What's their intention?
So, sir, they are between 6 and 9 years of age, a mix of boys and girls, all human. They were sent in a cage. They were quite docile. They did not appear to be traumatized beyond this strange docility. And we are having people with various priests and people with medical knowledge
magically appear.
So, do they appear to have been used as slaves? Because that's definitely illegal within the bounds of Berenice.
No, they don't, Baroness. They appear, well, it's hard to tell. They don't communicate a lot. Most of them don't speak our language. Some of them have a few words. But from what we can understand, they are children of citizens, and they seem to believe that this is an appropriate thing to do and that we would welcome it. So this appears to be a cultural difference of quite some magnitude.
Yes.
Who's the point? So obviously anyone interested in?
So their undead have provided food sources. They've sent us food. How charming.
Grimly?
So who is responsible for these people?
Crusaders.
So
yes.
Do we need to appoint some official ambassadors to go with whatever flowery language to Midgast to try and find out more information? And there's clearly a difference between the Kingdom of Berenice and this new land if they start sending us children. But
oh yes, I do believe there are quite a few ambassadors going with them.
Official, said official. He's unofficial.
Right. I understand that the Lady Crusader of Shanna has asked to be appointed as an official ambassador. What does the council think to that? She's probably not an entirely unbiased observer.
No.
So she would be loyal to the crown.
We want an unbiased ambassador to observe and report, and then we can make a judgment of what we should do about it. rather than letting the ambassador go in there and start spouting opinions of their own.
What sort of response would you like us to make to them? Presuming you want us to send a response at all.
Well, the children are probably better off
It
here
does
than
seem
there anyway.
unlikely that we can mount an invasion. There are not enough.
Yeah, I think we've got to reassure
Maybe a
them.
small investigative force, but it's not going to be invading.
It's a diplomatic trade.
It seems obvious that they consider this to be something of value in their culture.
Yes, apparently
Don't send any children back.
No.
No.
Do we actually want? Do we actually want to keep the children?
I think they're better off here than there, aren't they? Surely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the children have got to be protected here and not sent back until we know a little bit more, at least, about. About what would happen to them, but it would also be their gift. I know we don't see it the same way. We're not going to do anything nefarious with the children. We're going to look after them, and that might not be what they're expecting. But to send them back would be clearly seen as rude and would not help diplomatic approaches.
They'll send more.
That's good. We win then. We save people from them.
Save more. Yeah.
So, Chairman, how about if we were to respond with something like thanking them for their communication, but pointing out to them that in our culture, there is clearly some different understanding about the nature of children, and that we look forward to further communications with them in the future.
Yes, and the nature of life. Yes.
Who's in charge of looking after these children, by the way?
They are being looked after by volunteer families, the same families who currently deal with in the villages some of the orphans that we have happen in Bernie.
Take them to the church.
So are they in Crown Heart or somewhere?
They're not all in the same place, but no, they're not in Crown Heart, sir.
Right. Okay.
I could volunteer my estate to care for one or two if it was felt helpful. The countryside and the fresh air.
I'll certainly pass that information on to the relevant authorities.
Okay. You can carry on that discussion offline, I think. I'm slightly curious about your eagerness. Anyway. Sorry. So send back, Royal Clerks, please send back a missive to that effect. Thank them for their gift. Explain the difficulty we experience due to the cultural differences, and advise that we are sending a trade and diplomatic caravan to them at the moment. Absolutely not an invasion. And once we are in a position to open those diplomatic talks, once the caravan arrives, we can try to find some common ground and perhaps exchange some more appropriate gifts at that point once we understand each other.
And send a tax bill.
Understood.
Should we send what we think is an appropriate gift as a way to acknowledge their stated intentions, even if they didn't do the right thing by us?
Yes, I would suggest send them a book on Shanna. Yes, that'd be very helpful. I'm sure that improve their understanding of the gods of light. I'd probably end up delivering it personally, but you never know.
Do we want to send a gift?
It would be good to send them a gift of some sort, but of not holy water or something stupid like that.
Do we risk confusing them as much as they've confused us?
Do we have any, skilled manufacturers of coffins or anything like that?
When you kill vampires, apparently they don't need coffins, do they? They just disappear into dust.
We bury the crossroads vampires, don't you? So we can send a city planner or something.
Have we actually appointed an ambassador yet?
I believe vampires are actually rare in their kingdom. So.
What? Have we actually appointed an ambassador yet?
No, we haven't, I don't think.
Right.
I should do that.
If I might point out, sir, ambassadors to the various regions may well be on your list of people to appoint.
Yeah. So how about asking anyone who wants to be the ambassador to think up what the gift should be?
Judy's ambassador. Yeah.
He'll give you
Mine
something else to judge from.
Okay, at the moment, we've only had, to my knowledge, one request from the Lady Crusader of Shanna to act as the ambassador. Why don't we throw that open, thank her for her interest in the position, invite other candidates to put themselves forwards, and all to suggest an appropriate gift to be sent back to the to Midgast and see what they come up with.
When by?
When by, I mean, the caravan's going to take a long time to get there. Send the royal clerks, please send that missive back as we discussed immediately, and we will ask candidates to come forward with their requests to fill that role and their gift suggestion prior to the next council meeting, where we'll make a decision who will be appointed to that role.
Understood.
Okay, any other business, anyone else?
Well, there's one I mentioned a few weeks back about letting undead and the various sort of other sort of I say sort of non-protected citizens sort of actually join the army and get protection from the crown as and when they join the army. So therefore, should we get attacked by Kier or anyone else, is we got sort of someone there as sort of made as backup to help out with the army. The army at the moment is in Fritz Finn, so we might need something there just in case we get attacked by Kier. That might happen at some point with everyone sort of sodding off to Minigast to kill the vampires, to put it bluntly.
There already is a royal commission, as I understand it, that deals with petitions. That would be a basis for making a petition before the commission, I would think.
It's up to the adventurer concerned to make their own petition. If they can't be bothered, then how can you expect the Royal Commission to do anything about it?
No, the thing is, it says sort of one at a time, which might take a very long time. And then from what I've read about the Monster Commission, you've got to do sort of way too much stuff to actually get even considered.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't think the Monster Commission has had anything to deal with the last 10 years. So I imagine they're probably out of a job at the moment.
There's been no petition. There's been no petitions.
Does anyone know what the effect of dropping a bunch of vampires into an army is going to have on the rest of the army?
Yes, they'll need food.
I can't imagine they'll be very happy, particularly if, say, they're followers of Shanna.
No, I think the way of doing it, you've got sort of humans will be on one side, sort of the undead and what have you will be on different sides, so it won't be sort of mixed together.
Yes.
Yeah,
us versus them.
Have they already taken the king's coin and become part of the army already as we sit here? Is that what you're?
No, I'm just sort of.
It's not a more complicated discussion than we have time for today. Could it be on the next?
Well, yeah, we can.
Official agenda.
I can do that, sir. I can bring forwards the idea of perhaps a specialist unit of undead, which I think is what Sir Gabon is suggesting. Which those who volunteer to join it would thereby gain additional protection. We could perhaps put something together for you and propose it to the next committee meeting.
That's roughly what I'm trying to say. I'm just sort of, it's awkward to try to explain, if you know what I mean. We've got sort of so many people sort of who hate undead, and we'll sort of shoot down any idea even before they hear everything about it. That's a main thing we've got to worry about at the moment. So I'm thinking sort of, the more we got in the army, better it is, just in case we get attacked, even if it's sort of undead, sort of dragons, demons, or whatever what they want to be. You can have sort of humans on the other left side, all the sort of questionable ones, vampires and whatever, can be sort of on the other side. And sort of, if anything comes in, we've got two forces they got to deal with.
So all the undead will simply join the take the king's coin, and they'll therefore be protected.
We
Awesome.
discuss
I'm
it
sure that'd
next
be
time.
very popular.
I think
Like
that's
soldier, if you disobey, you can be punished by the officers, or court-martialed, or whatever needs to be done.
Oh yes, well, is that anything like the last army recall? I think half of the people who took the king's coin were too far below the surface to possibly attend. So,
okay. there's a lot of different viewpoints on this, and I think the debate on this could run on for some time. As we've decided, we'll have that as an agenda item for the next council meeting. We'll discuss it further there. Is there any other business, or shall we now close this session?
Yeah, sorry, just a small one about the Baldoon issue and the King's coin. As the clerk's got a list of people that took both King's coin and the Baldoon's Border Scouts King's coin.
I certainly can get a list of the people who took the King's coin, sir, but I'm afraid the Baldoon Border Scouts was outside of our remit.
Just thought.
You could ask them.
Yeah, Chaldan, do you have any contacts there who may be able to provide that information?
I think you would have to go through the Duke, I'm afraid. It's we obviously know of people who are in the Baldoon Border Scouts, but I think the General Euruston would probably refer you to the Raven and his ducal council. And yes.
Well, I don't think it's the right time to do that in light of the other discussions we're having with the Duke. So,
best to wait for now. Just wait to see what happens.
Get them on a legal loophole that if they're taking both coins and they're seceding from the crown, the kingdom, they've got to
Where's the loyalty lie?
Well, indeed, in that case, that gives them a perfect excuse to stop the King's coin. Well, that's fine. You can't normally do that, but if you can allow them to do that, I'm sure people would love to jump on that bandwagon. It might be a rather good recruiting point for the Baldoon Border Scouts. Drop the King's coin and take ours instead.
I say we wait until we see how they progress with the Raven before we force people to make a decision.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, at the moment we've got nothing to worry about. Should we decide to sort of attack the Baldoon, that's when it sort of boils down to sort of who's got King's coin and the Raven's coin. Then they got to make a choice who they're going to follow.
That applies to any civil war, though. We're trying to avoid.
While people are discussing openly attacking Baldoon, could you close the meeting and then they can discuss it outside the meeting?
Well, I'm not saying sort of attack. I'm just saying sort of should an attack happen. Hopefully it won't. We should. All goes well. Sort of sending in diplomats. All of us like to talk and sort of go on about this, that, and the other, and hopefully we can sort of get a Raven at some point to meet with us under, depending on sort of how you want to do it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. We don't say sort of you must come. We demand you to come. We say sort of when it's convenient for you, for a meeting to happen. That way, it looks better from our point of view. If we say you put it in his hands, say sort of when can you see us? We're available sort of at these times. That way, it's more sort of a request more than a demand. It will look better. Yeah. Sort of come from that way, and not sort of. Like we tried, sort of, we said sort of you must come. He says no, bugger off. Sort of. If we say sort of when you're available, we would like to speak to you about various things. It's that way. It's in his hands. If he still says sort of no, then we can sort of try other means of taking care of the problem.
Okay, I think that covers off all of our business today, and a wisp called Uber has just arrived from Farmer McDonald, so I think we need to close off the meeting at this point, and I look forward to seeing you all again next session.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Awesome. Ciao.